Indiana County 911. My brother's gone. Can you be a little more specific, sir? He took my brother. Who took him? I don't know who took him. I don't know what. Sir, take a breath. Explain to me what happened.
And I looked out and there was this big red blinking UFO.
I can just say this. Something's going on in the woods. Something's going on.
They're not dogs, they're not coyotes. What could it be, right?
I had an encounter with a skunk ape, and it completely altered the course of my life.
I found his skull. Are you guys gonna want to come build this? Put him out. I just see it.
Sightings of a UFO hovering over a barn.
Millie woke up from a dream, and when I went into the bedroom, she said there's a monster on the wall.
They saw that the creature had run through a barbed wire fence. They were able to obtain hairs. They sent the hairs to their lab, and it came back as an unknown creature.
Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin.
What is up, bizarreites, and welcome back to the most bizarre show on the internet. I am the one that they call Shayn Squatch.
I wasn't sure if that was Shayn Squatch or Alex Jones. You were like teetering on the edge there.
I was trying to do like half announce. Like, imagine if Alex Jones was like an announcer for like the WWE, and that's what I was going for.
That's pretty much what he is, isn't it?
I mean, practically. I mean, if you look at, everything going on with politics as possibly being somewhat of a show, which, that's a whole other conspiracy theory we can go down at some point, but...
But anyway, I'm the big bad boo daddy, Warren Felix, and welcome to the show tonight, y'all. And we have some exciting updates. Shane, kicking it back over to you.
So for anybody that's noticed that the logo changed on the feed, it's been almost 3 years running, and we've had the same logo. We thought it was about time for an upgrade. We were intending to also upgrade the theme song, but that's going to be coming a little bit later. We're going to have some new stuff mixing in with that. But we have a brand new, awesome logo that was created by Chris from Conspire Theory, who is also the person who was awesome enough to do the Inquiries of Our Reality logo. And
friend of the show, I would say at this point.
Definitely a friend of the show. He also helped us out with our Fear and Loathing. This is SQUATCH Country design. Like, he does a lot of the artwork for the show, so I always appreciate the stuff that he does. But just like I kind of did with the Inquiries logo, we like the format, we like the way it's set up. We want everybody to still kind of have that normal Bizarre Encounters feel, but we wanted to give it a version 2, like a 2.0. Make it look a little bit cleaner, a little bit less clip arty. So with the new logo, we have this awesome, the UFO still abducting the Sasquatch, but instead of having like the demon shadows and everything in the sides, we mix it up. So now we got a ghost, we got an alien, we got a demon, and we got an occult member. Because of course, it seems like we dive into the occult stuff a lot lately on the show, especially with what Orin's been deep diving in with. But honestly, Orin, you got anything to say about the new logo? Thoughts, opinions, anything like that?
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much hit all of it. There's a lot going on with it. Like I said, it's like the old logo in Technicolor. It's like once Dorothy lands in Oz versus when she's in Kansas. So anyway, that's my expert art critique of the new logo.
It's however it makes you feel, right? Like it's the feelings that it sets up in your mind of this ominous, bizarre encounter that might happen.
And if it makes you feel like shit, then go fuck yourself.
Definitely go fuck yourself.
And on that note, we have another important news and update. It's not us fucking ourselves or anything, but
that's what's on the OnlyFans, guys. We can't say it enough. You got to check out the Bizarre Encounters After Dark OnlyFans.
Yeah, you got to pay for that. But for absolutely fucking free, on February the 6th at 7:15 on the YouTubes, we're going to have our first ever live episode of Bizarre Inquiries. So you guys make sure that you submit any questions or, clips or articles or anything you want us to inquire about, and make sure y'all hop into the chat and participate.
And of course, changing the format up just a hair bit. That will be an hour-long episode. So if you guys pop in, it won't be like 15 minutes and we're done. We're going to extend the format. So it's worth the wait. So, you guys might as well, get yourself some popcorn, go and watch us on the YouTubes. You can even, put it on the TV on your Xbox and stuff and, chill back, enjoy the show with us, and throw in your thoughts and opinions.
Well, that remains to be seen. This is the first one. It very well might not be worth the wait. But hey, you guys can follow along with us and see how much of a shit show this turns into.
Hopefully not a shit show, but we'll try our best. That's all we can do. We try our best.
And if it gets too bad, we'll just start literally fucking ourselves. So there you go.
I think we'll get pulled off of YouTube for that one.
I hope so.
Then you got to switch over to the live feed on Rumble or OnlyFans.
And piggybacking off of that, if you guys want to get up with us for any reason whatsoever, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
If you guys want to get a hold of us, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys can also get a hold of us through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the ones we're the most active on, or you guys can get a hold of us through the submission form, which is available on our link tree. Or last but not least, you guys can always text or call our hotline number, and that number is 313-364-1551. And if you guys enjoyed the show and you think we deserve it, please leave a review or rating for the show on iTunes or Spotify. It is greatly appreciated, and your continued support is what makes this show possible, and your opinions go a long way to help this show grow and improve. So again, thank you guys.
And as always, all of the shit we've mentioned is in the link tree in the show description.
Today with us, we have the legendary Ryley Watson from Midwest Mythos. Welcome to the show, man, after a long time.
Hey, how's it going, man?
So you're originally back on episode 10, and at that point, you hadn't even started up your show yet. So we got to come full circle around, man. You gotta let people know a little bit about your show before we get into today's topic.
All right, so I'm Ryley, the host of Midwest Mythos. Y'all probably heard Shayn Orin talk a little bit about it. You probably heard them both on the show. They were both my first and second guest on the show.
Whoop, whoop.
I was number 2, which I feel like there's some kind of joke there, but anyway.
Well, I'm number 1, so if you ain't first, you're last.
Well, so it's pretty similar to this show in some ways, others not so much. So I do interviews, researchers, people come on, tell their stories. Kind of like I try to give it a campfire feel, but it really don't turn out that way sometimes. I got some deep dive episodes. Nothing to the caliber of this show, but I'm still learning how to do them.
Man, it took us a while to catch our stride on the deep dives. Like the first one that I think we got done with, I was like, man, we're on to something here. Was our with Phil UFO episode. Like the ones before that were a little rough, but I mean
that one and Black Shuck, those were like the two where I feel like we really started getting rolling.
But no, you'll catch your stride, man.
I'm hoping so. I got some big ones here cooking, but yeah. It's don't let the name fool you. Yeah, the only reason it's Midwest Mythos is because I'm from the Midwest and I really like alliteration. I got people coming telling stories from all over the place. Yeah, it's a pretty chill show, pretty Christian influence. So I kind of come at things like a biblical perspective compared to most other shows. I guess I can't say that nowadays, but
you got your own little community going over there, man.
Yeah, it seems that way. It's fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm still learning the game. Been going about 9 months now, but yeah, it's a fun time. Y'all should give it a listen.
So why don't you tell everybody about the intro to your show, which I think is pretty banging, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Oh, thank you, man. So the intro of my show. It's me sitting there playing my guitar, and I just say some stuff over it. I'm not gonna lie, I may have stole it from all the countless Travel Channel, History Channel, like documentaries, like those guys like Josh Gates, Pat Spain, and all of them. Those awesome intros to their shows that just like get you hook, line, and sinker. So mine's like, ever since I was a young boy, I love hearing stories of the unknown, places undiscovered, people's experiences with creatures, and the scars of how they got from the interactions and stuff like that. So,
but it's way more dramatic than that. Like with the guitar playing, and like you put on like your showman voice when you do it, and it's very sultry.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Midwest Mythos.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
You got the announcer voice going.
Testicles when you do it.
So that voice, if you listen to the show, you'll hear it pretty often. I usually keep it towards the beginning of the episode and it falls off. But my family and all my friends call that my drive-throughs voice because you'll hear me talking like this, but in the car at McDonald's or Taco Bell, and then it'll be, can I get a number 7, no tomato? And they're like, why'd you drop your voice 2 octaves? I was like, I don't know.
Because it's super badass. That's fine.
Yeah, I was like, my old man did it, so I kind of just picked it up from habit. So if you ever call me on the phone or anything like that, you're going to hear me talking like this.
I was going to hello.
What's good? But yeah, I like to play with my voice a little bit. I can't help it. It's just how it is. But I have fun with it, and it seems like everybody else enjoys it.
Hey, it's part of coming into a show, man. You got to kind of figure out your voice and like how you kind of portray your voice on the show. Because, you know, like even if you're not doing a voice, you end up creating this like podcast voice that, you know, you'll finish the show and then like an hour afterwards, you'll still be doing it. And your lady's just like, stop. You're like yelling and shit.
Like the Jack Parsons voice.
That's a magical fiasco.
See, I got this problem where, so most of my family's from down south. So when I talk to my family, I sound like Boomhauer from King of the Hill. But when I talk to everybody else, you know, I talk like this. I semi-pronunciate my words. But when I'm talking to my wife makes fun of me every time I go to my grandparents' house because I'll be sitting there talking to my grandpa, yelling from the barn. He'll be like, "Hey, man, come on, help me get to town." I'm like, "All right, man, I'll be out there in a second." And she's like, even like my mom was supposed to look at me like, "What'd you say?" And I was like, "I'm going to be out there in a second. Help him grab some chairs." But that ain't what you said. But so... You know, I'm just one of the people whose voices fluctuate. So, I mean, y'all definitely hear that. It's just, it ain't me making fun of nobody or nothing like that. That's just how it happens.
I feel like people.
I was going to say, instead of a man of many hats, you're a man of many voices, I guess.
Yes. It's
part of being a musician. You also play with your voice.
Yeah, I can sing way higher than I'd like to admit. So.
Get a good old clamp going.
Don't even need it. I could shatter glass if I had a clamp.
So I guess kind of rolling into today's topic, something that I've brought up a million times on the show, but we've never deep dived into it. But we figured it'd be a good opportunity to have you come on the show, have you talk about it, since of course, you know, you're a Mish from Michigan, just like myself, and you live on that side of the state. So you got a little bit more with in the field research as far as the Lake Michigan Triangle goes. So I guess I'll pass it over to you, man, to kind of get everything rolling as far as what we're diving into today.
All right. So I guess I should start with, what is the Lake Michigan Triangle? Well, the Lake Michigan Triangle is one of many, many, many mysterious triangles on this planet Earth. Everybody knows the Bermuda Triangle. Everybody's starting to get familiar with the Bridgewater Triangle, but there's this third triangle that I really noticed people weren't talking about too much unless you were from Wisconsin or Michigan, and that's the Lake Michigan Triangle. And if you ask me, I think it's a lot weirder than the two latter. I mean, very similar stuff happens in both. So the Lake Michigan Triangle is a triangle, so it has 3 points. Not 1, not 2, not 4, but 3. The most northern point is Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Then directly across the lake, you got Ludington, Michigan. And the most southern point is Benton Harbor, Michigan. The triangle takes a majority of Lake Michigan and is the cause of many unexplainable phenomena that we're going to get into.
Just to kind of give them a taste of it, too, for anybody that may not be familiar, even though I've mentioned a million of these things on the show, the cool part about the Lake Michigan Triangle, you got a mix of, like, the Chicago stuff, so you got these, like, flying, like, humanoids, you got the UFO stuff going on, you got abductions going on, you got weird water creatures going on, like, just to give people a little bit of a taste of it. There's a little bit of everything.
Oh, yeah, and it's one of the things I've noticed in my research, especially since doing the episode on my show on this, was just because the triangle itself has boundaries does not mean that 20, 30 miles away from one of the points that something isn't happening. Because from Ludington, if you go, let's say 50 miles at most, you got the Manistee National Forest, which a lot of stuff happens there. If you go to Benton Harbor, you have Dewey Lake, 20 minutes away, big Sasquatch sighting. If you go south of it, there's been sightings of Dogman, a lot of Sasquatch activity. There's some people down there that are pretty familiar with that area. A lot of UFO activity as well outside of the boundaries of the triangle, but relatively compared to everything else, it's still very active. So we'll get into some of that. So my personal favorite thing about the Great Lakes, not even so much as the Lake Michigan Triangle, is shipwrecks. Very tragic, but very interesting, especially the case of the Rosabella. So, the Rosabella, y'all get to hear me read, and I apologize.
At least you warned them.
Yeah. On October 30th, 1921, another lumber-carrying schooner, the Rosabella, departed Highland Lake, Michigan, loaded with cargo. The planned destination was Benton Harbor, Michigan. Less than 24 hours after the departure of the ship was found floating 42 miles from Milwaukee, but it was clear that something had gone horribly wrong. The ship was bobbing in the water, completely upside down, and the captain from the nearby Grand Trunk Milwaukee Ferry Company ferry station noted that the ship looked like it had suffered a serious collision with another vessel. The AFT section of the Rosabella was smashed in, the cabin was torn away from the deck, and rigging was floating in the water near the hull. But there was no one to question, no bodies to analyze to determine what had happened. The entire 11-person crew was nowhere to be found. Even more confusing was that there was no collision reported in an area, and no other ships in the region were found or seen with any damage that would have pointed to a deadly crash. And another weird thing is all the crew members were members of the House of David, which in themselves are worth a full episode and little teaser trailer for something that's coming to Midwest Mythos. I'm doing a big deep dive into that house. All I got to say as a little teaser is heaven on earth, trying to recreate heaven on earth, people from all over the world coming to live everlasting life under the jurisdiction of a man, and Al Capone.
Just to throw it in there too, if I'm not mistaken, weren't they the one that started the baseball team thing too?
Yes.
Where they had like the big ass beards and the long hair, and they were like, it was like 1920s or something like that, right?
Oh, earlier than that, actually.
Earlier than that.
Yeah, but the baseball thing got really big in the late 20s. Something cool I came across in research. Super side note, y'all are used to side tangents on this show. So
no, we don't do that.
Some sports history. So everybody likes to, not saying he didn't have a big part because he did. Everybody likes to think of Jackie Robinson as the mover of combining the Negro League with the MLB, but it was actually the House of David. They were the first ones to start and have white people play against the Negro League and bringing them together and like traveling across the whole entire country with Negro League teams, bringing them in, forcing white people to watch their games and forcing white people to treat them like the people they are, not second-class citizens. You know, treat them like humans, let them play on the fields, or we're not playing. And everybody and their brother across the whole entire country wanted to watch them play baseball. So, little sports history. We would not have. Well, we might now, but it would have been a lot later that the two leagues would have combined than if it wasn't for the House of David.
Hold on tight, guys. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but
if you guys want to stay up to date with the show, follow Bizarre Encounters on Instagram and Facebook, and Open Minds Media on YouTube, Telegram, and the TikToks.
And now back to the show. Yeah, they could back it up too, because they actually built their own. I don't know if it was a full stadium, but they built a field. I remember, and like teams would come and pay to play on it, and that's how they got into playing. So it's like, you know, they could back it up, or people said, "Oh, you can't play at our stadium." They go, "Okay, that's fine. We'll just go play a home game then."
I've actually got to walk around, toss the ball and stuff, and it's all it is a field now. It's all withered away, but I've actually got to go out there, watch some of my friends play a game out on the field that they played on almost 100 years ago. No, so there's a lot
cool.
of yeah. But what do you guys think, like, about this ship? The cabins being torn away, all the wreckage and stuff going around it, but no evidence of a collision.
So it's funny you bring this up. I'm actually working on an episode now that is going to incorporate a little bit of shipwreck type stuff into that. Not necessarily like triangles related, but just kind of strange areas where, weird stuff seems to happen. And it seems like these kind of bizarre shipwrecks where everybody disappears is kind of one of the hallmarks of these weird areas. So I think it's kind of funny and a synchronicity, if you will, that we're talking about this tonight, because I was literally just working on some of the notes for this subject before we popped on tonight. So just one of those weird things.
Oh yeah, it always seems to happen, man. Always.
Dude, as far as my thoughts on it, man, like, of course you got to throw in the whole idea of like the rogue wave concept, because that does happen in the Great Lakes. But again, that doesn't necessarily explain where all the bodies went, because like Lake Superior, for example, super duper deep. Like bodies don't float back up. That's where like a lot of like the lore and everything comes from there. But Lake Michigan isn't necessarily known for this. But getting it into a little bit of the weirder side of things, keep in mind, the one side of Michigan is supposed to be like number 3 in the country for the top most like UFO abductions per capita. So I mean, there is UFO abductions being known in the region. So I mean, they don't find any bodies, they don't find anything. I mean, in the lakes, we don't really have anything vicious where it's going to come after people or anything. Like we got the lake sturgeons and stuff, but they're not going to sit here and eat a whole crew of people. So it's like there's nothing in the water that would have ate these things, unless you get into the whole other weird aspect of lake monsters. But that's a whole other thing.
We'll get into the UFOs and we can talk some lake monsters for sure. I actually got some UFO stuff towards the end, because me personally, I think a lot of it is the UFO stuff. When I was researching this, I couldn't find too much on it because, like I said, there was no bodies. There was nobody from that survived the wreckage to even like give like a big fish story or something like that. Half true what's going on. So that is one of those big mysteries. But everything else that is going on that I'm gonna cover, I'm sorry to tell you guys, you ain't gonna get a lot of definitive answers, but.
Hey man, we say on the show all the time, I don't think the answers are that important. It's the journey, if you will. So I'm excited to go on the journey with you tonight, man.
This next one is Captain, I'm going to say Donner. I've heard people say Donner.
Donner. That sounds fancy. You got to roll the R's.
All right. So this article, I can give credit to where I got it from because I actually put it in there. So this one's from the Pine Barrens Institute. Those guys are awesome when it comes to their articles and stuff. So the story begins on the cold night of April 28th, 1937, as the Great Lakes freighter O.S. McFarland is making its way across Lake Michigan towards its final destination, a power plant in Port Washington, Wisconsin. A blood-red moon hangs above the ship, in which is transporting over 9,800 tons of coal from its starting point in Erie, Pennsylvania, which had departed only a few days prior. While the trip was not considered difficult by any means, relatively speaking, it was considerably slower due to the frozen state of the lakes at the time. Thankfully, though, the McFarland proved to be in good hands as she was captained by the well-respected George R. Donner. Donner, who was no stranger to the frozen Great Lakes, had been officially sailing for decades, but had been on the water even longer in some capacity since he was born in 1879, employed by the Valley Camp Steamship Company for over 10 years, working as a skipper and mate of their various ships. Donner would transfer employment when his previous employer, Columbia Transport, was bought out in 1935. In 1937, after not making a single voyage in the 2 years, they would grant him a rank of captain, and he was given full command over the O.S. McFarland. In his first official voyage of the season under that, the CTC would begin on April 25th, and his task was to transport coal from Pennsylvania to Wisconsin. He was 57 years old. At 10:20 p.m. with the Straits of Mackinac this is such a hard word. Successfully navigated through and with manageable ice flows all around them. Captain Donner ordered the speed of the ship lowered for safety and proceeded to step away from his post. So I'm going to stop there for a second. The Straits of Mackinac. Oh, sorry. No, there's no G in this one. The Straits of Mackinac. They're two different things. Don't let anybody not from Michigan tell you that they're the same thing, because they're two different things, and we'll get mad about that. So I don't know if anybody's ever seen them, but that's some fast-moving water through there.
Oh yeah.
And during the wintertime, because when I used to live up in the UP, I lived up there, and during the wintertime, there's a lot of ice and stuff moving through there. I ain't talking like little ice cubes. I'm talking some big slabs of ice, and those things would destroy anything that went through there. Even some of them big cargo ships, I'd be a little scared to be in. So, yeah, that's a little history, geology, Ryley knowledge for y'all.
Yeah, you do get some like real icebergs up there though, because it's like they'll shut stuff down completely going to Mackinac, where like people that are living on Mackinac Island can't even like, because usually like as soon as winter starts happening, everything freezes over. They'll take like snowmobiles over, because for anybody that's not familiar with Michigan, Mackinac Island, there's no cars or anything. You got a ferry there, and then it's all like bikes and horses and everything like that they ride around there. But they'll use a snowmobile to come over on the ice. But you know, if there's anything going on with that water, like they don't let people take any chances. Like essentially, you're stuck to Mackinac at that point, because like these things will be like, you know, easily like 10 feet thick. And they'll be like moving through fast water. Like they'll destroy some shit real quick.
Oh yeah. The understandable stress that which she had been under for the past few hours while navigating the large freighter through the nearly frozen straits has started to take its toll. As a respectable captain grew tired, informing his first and second mate that he would be retiring to his cabin for a well-deserved rest. Yeah, I would think after that, you know, he could get a couple hours of sleep. That's okay in my book.
You've earned it.
Yeah. He instructed them to wake up, and when they had passed Sheboygan and started their approach into Port Washington. Oh, yeah, they wanted to wake them up when they hit Sheboygan. So, being familiar with the lakes and the speed in which they were traveling, he estimated it would take roughly about 3 hours. Confident that his men could handle the task of controlling the ship in his absence, Captain Donner made his way towards his cabin, which was located at the back of the pilot house and down the companionway. Once inside, he shut the sturdy wooden door behind him, and his men instantly took command. 3 hours later, at 1:20 a.m., which is now the 29th of April, and the captain's birthday, the ship began its approach towards Port Washington. Following the captain's orders, the second mate approached the cabin to alert Donner that he is in need of the pilot house to prepare for docking procedures. The man proceeded to knock on the door, but strangely, there was no answer. Calling for the captain once again, the second mate began to knock on the door just as he had done moments ago, but still there was no answer. Concerned that the captain could not hear him for some reason, the second mate decided to enter the room. But when he attempted to turn the handle, it would not move. The door appeared to be locked from the inside. Worried the captain would sleep past the point he insisted to be woken up at, the second mate went to retrieve the master key. After bringing the first mate up to speed on what was going on, he headed back to the captain's cabin and proceeded to unlock the door, make his presence known before walking down the stairs and stepping into the room. The second mate could assumed he would hear the captain, but there was no response. Now worried that the captain was sick or something had gone wrong, some medical emergency, the second mate opened the door, but he was waiting for him to be inside, and he noticed that it was empty. The captain just disappeared. Confused, the second mate had everybody go search the ship. They thought maybe he jumped out the windows and stuff. I'm kind of summarizing it now. All the windows and stuff were locked, still fastened. They figured, he might be hungry. So they went and checked the galley. They noticed that some of the guys were finishing up the break. They asked if they seen the captain. They were like, no. So not long after that, every man on the ship was aware of the situation, and they searched everything. And they were never able to find him. So this dude just completely disappeared out of nowhere. Yeah, so it's like he just vanished. There's no sign of him ever. That's pretty weird.
I mean, like, you could assume maybe it would have been like murder or something, but the doors were locked. So it's like, you know, the only place you can go is essentially off the ship. It's like there's nowhere you can really like hide on the ship, especially if like it's like the crew that actually knows the ship and knows every crevice of it. Like, some weird shit, man. It's also weird that it was only one person.
Yeah, and there was literally no way for him to get out without opening the door and walking out the door, but it wouldn't have been locked. well, I guess it could have been locked, but they had the master key. And some these ships, even though they're big, like you're going to notice people walking around. Like he's not going to go unseen whatsoever. So some of the theories is like a mutiny like that, but on such a short, on a 4 or 5 day trip, really wouldn't expect a mutiny, especially with a captain's first voyage.
Well, and I'm sure like in the years since somebody would have come out and said something like one of those deathbed confessional type deals if that was the case, you know?
You know what I think it comes down to?
Here's an idea. Aliens.
That's what I'm thinking.
All right, y'all, we got to take a break and pay some bills.
But if you guys hate ads, well, you guys can get ad-free and early access on Patreon for just $1 a month. And it's a great way to support the show. And if you'd like to get some extra video content and merch store discounts, there are a few other tiers with additional benefits with 7-day free trials available for most.
And now back to the show.
I know, all seriousness, yeah.
I wonder if there's any reports of like strange lights or anything like that seen around the ship, because, you know, it seems like with a lot of these like abduction cases, you know, this is a common thing where there'll be like locked doors, locked windows, and a person just upright like disappears. So, I mean, like that's what, at least what I'd relate it to, at least knowing what was already kind of happening and known in the area. And especially the fact that nobody saw this guy go, all the doors were locked, disappeared without a trace. Like I said, the only thing I'd be curious about is if anybody like saw any weird lights or like noticed anything weird other than that, because I almost feel like sailors, especially, you know, maybe they do have their own like set of folklore, but, you know, I don't feel like UFOs maybe are something that sailors were talking about back then. But I mean, maybe they were though, because there's a lot of reports about UFOs being over water and there's a lot being seen near the Great Lakes. So maybe it was something that, you know, people on these ships were talking about back in the day still, even if they weren't calling them UFOs, you know?
I'm sorry, Riley. What year was this again when this happened?
So this happened in, sorry, let me get there. Scroll. Dang, I read a lot. I'm sorry, guys. 1937.
Okay, so it would have been a little before like Roswell and the Kenneth Arnold sighting and like UFOs and all that kind of stuff was kind of in the public imagination. So, yeah, I think, Shane, you're definitely onto something there.
Say, because even if it's like something that isn't really being talked about by sailors, maybe lights at least, you know, maybe they weren't calling them UFOs or anything, but maybe they talked about these like weird lights that would come up out of the water. And I mean, there's a lot of other like weird folklore with the Great Lakes with stuff like that. So, I mean, you know, maybe it's one of those things that kind of transitioned once the phenomenon became a little bit more known.
Yeah, and I would say you guys are definitely on the right track with that, because while doing the research and stuff for this, I didn't put anything in the notes because none of that did tie into those specific accounts of like missing captains and destroyed ships out of nowhere. But there is tons of other like super short sightings, even like to present time, where there's little orbs coming out of the water, zipping up. Oh, I saw these lights flashing all in the middle of the lake. It is a very, very common phenomenon. I mean, me personally, I've seen UFOs over Lake Michigan countless times, 2 or 3 times, like I know for sure, but I've seen a lot of weird lights over the lake.
See, I'm kind of curious if you know how there's the, I guess they call it like the Michigan Stonehenge, but it's in the water, so nobody can really access it to really be able to research it or really do much with it. Like they're aware of that it's there, but they really haven't done much researching it. Like I wonder if stuff like that ends up playing a factor in phenomenon like this. Like if that wasn't there, would there be this triangle phenomenon going on? Because I know it's, again, not necessarily like in the center of the radius or anything, but it's just a little bit north of kind of where that area sits. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe it does play in the phenomenon. Maybe, you know, that could be the origin location. But of course, like you're not going to actively be doing things right in your exact origin location, because it's kind of like, you know, if you have a secret base, you're not going to be doing shit right outside the secret base. You know, you're going to do it off in the distance so that people don't know where your secret base is. But if you're doing stuff right above it, people are going to have an idea to start looking in that area.
Yeah. And it's funny that you bring up that, because me and my brother from Ancient Enigma Files was just talking about this the other day, because he brought up the Stonehenge and it reminded me. So there's actually like petroglyphs and stuff, painting like of mammoth and stuff in the middle of the lake. Like not super close to shores. I mean, it's pretty out there. So I'm really thinking like there is some old civilization and stuff that was out there before the glaciers came through and sliced all the Great Lakes out, or maybe it wasn't glaciers. I don't know. Science would say it is, but I think there is a lot of stuff out there, and I think there's like a lot of like ritual stuff that took place out there because just knowing from Stonehenge itself, we know that is a very ritual heavy spot that lines with the summer and winter solstices. So why wouldn't the Lake Michigan Stonehenge line up? Maybe it lines up with like the spring and autumnal equinox, or who knows?
Say the thing that sucks is, again, nobody can really like get down there to really be able to like look at the stars from like any specific location of it. But I know Michigan, they say back in like prehistoric times, it was like a shallow tropical ocean. So, you already kind of had the shallow water aspect going, but there had to have been like a period between everything freezing and everybody, what they kind of know of Michigan as being the spot where there was a bunch of mammoth and everything. Because, Michigan back in the day was one of those spots where it was like, you go down the road and you'd end up finding like these things protruding out of the dirt, and you'd realize that there's like these mammoth skulls like everywhere. So like there was definitely like a lot going on in Michigan, at least as far as like tribes and everything go. So, again, who knows how long they've been here? Who knows exactly when they started popping up? But there was some middle point between like the Ice Age when like the glaciers formed and everything started shifting down, and this prehistoric time of it being a tropical shallow ocean, which is weird to think about because now we're like, the biggest freshwater lakes. I don't know. I know we are in the country for sure, but I don't know if we are in the world necessarily. I think we might be.
It is.
Yeah. So the largest freshwater lakes in the world, but at one point, again, it was a shallow tropical ocean. It's just weird to think about.
It really is. And
there's some huge salt deposits underneath Detroit, though. I don't know if you've dug into that, but yeah, there's like, that's where all the salt from Michigan for the most part comes from, is like the salt mines of Detroit. So, there's obviously clues that there was a bunch of salt in the area at one point.
I almost wonder if the Lake Michigan is like a mass ritual site. And I just, from all the stuff I've been looking into, researching, and just all the people I've been talking to lately, because all around, if you go all the way around Lake Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, it's not good, really. You got your few good towns here and there, your tourists, but a majority, it's like really dark. Because I know Chicago all the way through Gary up to, I believe, like Holland or something, is one of the biggest human trafficking chains in the entire world. And I know there's a lot of cartel stuff that goes on there as well. So I'm almost wondering if like all these people along the coast just dying and all this awful stuff and just all the human trafficking and stuff, and then the people just dying right over the lake, because we ain't even close to done with the amount of casualty this lake has taken.
Dude, even kind of moving it outwards from Detroit too. Obviously the other side of the state, but it still kind of plays somewhat of the same area. But talking about the occult aspect of it, a lot of people don't realize it, but the Masonic Temple in Detroit was actually started by Aleister Crowley, like back in like 1920 something, whatever it was. It was like one of his like first Masonic temples that he started, and Aleister Crowley, everybody knows his whole thing with like, I like summoning lake monsters. He claims to have summoned like the Loch Ness monster. So if he was already on that side of the state, is it really that far off if he came and started doing some ritualistic shit on the other side of the state? And I'm sure Orin wants to pop in with something too, unless I already beat him to the punch on that one.
No, I had a question more than anything else. So it's been a while back now, and just hearing you guys talk about this kind of jogged it in my memory. There's some video I saw about like, it's like a park or a monument or something in Detroit that like people speculate is like this portal. I can't remember the name of it now, but yeah, it's a pretty crazy video that I watched that was like laying out like all the architecture of this thing, and it looks like you guys know what I'm talking about.
No clue.
Oh, I definitely know what you're talking about. So you go down Detroit and there's this big ass like archway that again looks like a giant portal, but the weird part is there's like these stones around it.
Circle type thing, right?
Yeah, it's like a broken circle almost, but you get into the stones around it, and they say it's supposed to represent like freeing like African culture, like all that kind of stuff. But they have this rock that literally looks like souls trapped inside of a rock with like words on it. I don't remember what the words say exactly, but just like the imagery of the rock isn't like, oh, this is like optimistic. This is like a good thing. This is
like
freeing
a lot
people.
Of like occult New World Order type shit, isn't it?
Yep. I've never heard. Is that like America?
Is that what? Oh no, it's I think it's near Campus Marshes if I'm not mistaken.
All right, because I know there's some weird like.
But Detroit's covered in weird stuff though, because there's another guy. Crap, what's his name? He was on the Bump podcast a long time ago, and I talked to him. He's kind of follows with like the Christian crowd. He's one of like the street preachers that goes down to Detroit and like gets in trouble because you can't like preach in the street anymore and stuff. And he basically, when he's doing this around the city, he finds all these places. Like he found one sculpture that literally looks like a homunculi that's over in the middle of Detroit somewhere. I mean, like you got the giant fist that's in the center. You got the whole thing with what is it? The Spirit of Detroit, where it's like this man sitting here and it's got like the equilibrium like hand scale thing kind of going on. Like there's a lot of like occult ties to Detroit, and the more you dive into it, it's like it's this weird underlying thing as far as Detroit goes. And I think this even goes back to like the Nine Rouge, where it was like this more like people describe it as like this little imp demon looking thing. But I mean, when it comes to like the occult, that seems like it plays right into it, that you'd be making like deals or contracts with these beings. And I don't know, I feel like it goes back like really, really far as the occult aspect of Detroit, coming from like a root of like paganism and stuff. But yeah, there's so many different like weird monuments around Detroit. There's this whole weird like underlying of like witches and people that claim to be vampires and stuff like that in Detroit. It's weird. It's like a double-sided city. You have like the side that everybody knows as this like beat up kind of like rundown city, and then on the other side of it there's like this dark, ominous underlay. And coming again, somebody that's from the Detroit area, like it has this really, really weird presence over like the whole city. Like when I leave, go anywhere, I go to your side of the state, I go anywhere. Like I know that I'm coming back in the Detroit area because I'll just get this like really like heavy, uncomfortable presence in the area. So I mean, if you follow across the line of Detroit, that starts hitting into like where the Lake Michigan Triangle is. And when you start diving into like the latitude lines and everything like that, then I mean it's literally on the same line. And it usually is one of those things that it runs across in a straight strip. It's not just like specific spots on it. And that's when you start looking into like 33rd parallel, for example. But I don't know which one Detroit falls on, but it's straight across to the Lake Michigan Triangle.
Yeah, I was about to say, because you are pretty, it's a pretty straight shot from where I was stationed before I moved. Yeah, Benton Harbor, Detroit. I mean,
it's
Detroit
basically like a straight shot all the way across.
It's like a tiny bit north, but it like if you're going off the latitudinal, longitudinal lines, it's going to be within the same degree. It's not going to vary too much.
Just out of curiosity, if you want to hop back into it, I'm going to look that up and I might interject. And then if anybody's curious, I'll let you guys know what parallel Detroit falls on.
Orin, you got any other question before we move on?
I actually was Googling the latitude of Detroit. So it looks like it is on the 42nd.
I just brought it up as you were saying that too. It says 42.331492. So yeah, 42nd parallel.
Oh, now I got to look up the one. Can one of you guys look for the one for Benton Harbor?
Benton. How's that spelled?
Benton. But yeah, while you guys are doing that, I can hop into the next thing because
42.1167. So yes, it falls into the 42nd
basically
parallel.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so straight shot.
Like you said, it's like a little.
So this next one, I do got a whole article for it, but I really don't feel like reading the whole thing because it really doesn't need it, and it gives some, I got to give y'all listeners something to look at home. I can't sit here and read everything for you. You can't have. I want you to look into it yourself because this is a fun one. So, are you guys familiar with Flight Northwest 2501?
I am not.
Have you ever watched Josh Gates' new show, Expedition Unknown?
I mean, I've seen like a couple episodes. I'm not real big on a lot of his stuff.
See, I like it. I grew up watching his shows when they were on. They were when I was early teenager, so I was like, this is awesome. But I get it. Well, this he actually did a cool episode on this, which is funny to think about him recording something 15 minutes from my house. So Northwest 2501 was a flight that mysteriously disappeared. So it was a flight going from New York to Seattle, and it was supposed to have a layover in Minneapolis. Well, the plane was it was all right and stuff, but, there was a pretty bad storm that happened. as the Lake Michigan. If y'all aren't familiar with Lake Michigan, especially going over the Michigan side, it is one of the hardest places on the entire planet to predict weather because the lake is so big, it can change the weather instantaneously. So we get this thing called lake effect snow, and it is the worst thing on the entire planet. But yeah, so they're calling the Chicago air traffic control's calling out, making sure everything's all right. Well, the guys in Milwaukee weren't getting anything back, and then all of a sudden Chicago starts losing them. Well, as a little time goes by, the plane's it's a ghost plane now. No signal anywhere going anything. So they're like, oh man, it must have went down in the storm. So they send out all these search and rescue over the lake and stuff like that. They cannot find anything. They have planes, ships, everything going all over the lake. No signs of anything whatsoever. Well, after a couple days, they gave up searching as much as they are. Not able to find anything. They're like, maybe, we're looking on the wrong side of the lake because they're looking at where the planes was going. So they were checking the Wisconsin, Illinois side. And they're like, oh, let's check the Michigan side. So it would have been around South Haven. Well, they found some remains and stuff that just came up on shore, but no large pieces or complete bodies were ever found. Every once in a while, they'll get these random, like shoes, just body parts and stuff that'll wash up on shore. And I actually remember years after this article was written and stuff, so this was probably about 5-6 years ago, some random plane remains and people remains just washed up on shore. And they think it's actually was this flight, but there's no evidence to prove that it was. But they had to close South Haven's beaches down and everything, and they just decided to bury everything in a mass grave. But that's kind of weird because this wasn't, it was 1950, but at that point we had already had World War II, and our sonar and radar technology, it's pretty good. Not compared to nowadays, but if we were able to contact all over Europe, there's no reason that our planes and stuff should not be able to go across the lake. So that's just one of those weird mysteries that people don't know, like the answer to. 58 people passed away, and there's been no signs. I know people talk about, once again, possibility of maybe they, on the black box or something, you'll hear them talk about seeing a light or something like that. But this is just like one of those ones where you're
Did planes even have black boxes back then? Because I was thinking about that too, like as you were telling the story, but I don't know when that became a thing.
I would assume no, but that's just I'm going to throw in like a random unrelated fun fact here. So you guys want a fun fact? So carrots helping you have good eyesight. Do you guys know where that originated from?
No. Bugs Bunny.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be back with that bizarre stuff you crave. But
if you would like to rock some gear for your favorite podcast or creature, hop on over to the OMM merch store for a wide range of designs with new drops regularly.
And we are back with the high strangeness. Let's get back into it. So during World War II, there was the whole thing with the air raids that, Germany would drop bombs on the UK. So, or specifically London. So they ended up figuring out how to use radar in order to see these planes at night. So they'd be able to dodge some of these attacks. They'd be able to take some of the enemy planes out. And the Germans were trying to figure out why they were able to see them in the dark, because that was the whole thing. They would attack at night so nobody could see the ships or to see the planes. And they started this whole propaganda campaign in England where they were basically telling everybody, we got to grow carrots. Carrots help our soldiers. Carrots help with eyesight. So they basically started this propaganda campaign so that the Germans would think that carrots were the reason why they could see them at night. So then the Germans started producing a bunch of carrots and basically thinking that it would help their pilots be able to see at night. So considering that, end of World War II was when we just figured out radar in planes. Like, I'm assuming we didn't have black boxes yet, kind of bring that full circle. But yeah, the whole carrots helping your eyes actually comes from World War II propaganda. So just a fun fact.
Oh, interesting.
So Bugs Bunny's a fucking liar is what you're saying?
I'm saying it. Bugs Bunny is a fucking liar.
Okay.
Also, another fun fact, Captain America was also intended to be propaganda.
Are we sure he's not?
I mean, he's definitely propaganda. The very first Captain America comic book is a picture of him punching Hitler, so.
Well, and like the original name of the new movie that's coming out was like New World Order, so now they're just like fucking telling us what they're doing.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, man.
Good old World War II propaganda. And continuing propaganda. They just have to put it under a different name now. Actually, no, wait. Everybody forgets. When Obama was in office, he made it so that propaganda could be used against U.S. citizens again. So it is legal to run propaganda on U.S. citizens again.
Yes, it is. And back on the black box thing, because I Googled it. So the concept of the black boxes came around in the 1940s. It seems like everything seemed to have one in the 50s. So there's a small chance that this one could have like an early.
Depending on when the plane was made, because if it was an older model, it might not have it. But it's also probably rudimentary compared to what it is now, meaning the black box was probably literally like a recording device put inside of like a shock-proof case. Like, it wasn't like how it is now where it has all the sensors where it could tell exactly where if the plane got hit, if any of the doors were open. It was probably simply just like an indestructible box with a recording device in it.
Here, let me share my screen real quick. I actually have a picture of it pulled up. If you can see that. Yeah. Can you guys see that?
Yep, flight recorder.
That's not black at all.
Yeah, I know.
This episode is full of lies.
See, the problem is it was the 1950s. They couldn't call it the red box because, the Cold War was starting to build up. So
yeah, but again, it was the 1950s. They could have called it something way worse than the black box if they wanted to.
That sounds scary and ominous, though.
I mean, I guess it should be, considering what it's used for. I mean,
in a plane recording device to know if it crashed. We need to give it like an 1800 sounding name where it's like a very descriptive, overly long title. Box that shall not be destroyed when a plane crashes, but lets us know what happens. And that's all within hyphens. And there's dashes between words. So it's kind of like, stop-o-matic, it's all one word.
Now, I got a question for you guys, because this will depend if I get real deep into this next thing. Have you guys covered the mass UFO flight over Lake Michigan in the 90s? The big one that everybody talks about?
We have it.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we have it on like retainer to hit at some point. It hasn't been started yet, but it's on a list. But yeah, so no.
Yeah, I say, we're like 45 minutes in. Let's get into the UFO shit.
All right. So
we might have to have you come back because we've taken a lot of rabbit holes on this episode. No pun intended.
Oh, I'm down. Yeah, let's talk about this major UFO flight, and then we can start winding it down from there. So this is one of those ones that everybody and their brother has heard about. If you're into UFOs, you might not know it specifically, but once I start talking about it, it's going to start clicking in your head, and you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I heard about that. So on March 8th, 1994, a quiet night along the shores of Lake Michigan would become the epicenter of one of the world's most widespread UFO sighting events in history. Bright multicolored orbs materialized over the water, captivating the attention of residents as far as the Indiana state line. These mysterious lights danced erratically across the night sky, sparking panic and curiosity. Local police were they had a lot of over 300 calls from concerned citizens and the National Weather Service to confirm the presence of large unidentified objects in the sky over the lake. Yeah, this was the drone stuff before the drones in New Jersey. This is the OG.
It's the pre-drones.
Yes. Sightings extended from Ludington, Michigan to the Indiana state line, spanning a distance over 200 miles. Both the police and Michigan's chapter of MUFON received hundreds of calls. And, radar operator for the National Weather Service was part of this too. So a police officer from Holland described these objects as cylindrical and instantaneously moving, unlike, typical radar blips. I believe it's not in here, but I think it was Leslie Shaw. I don't know if you all had her on this show. I know.
Yeah, we had them on at one point.
Mm-hmm.
She recently commented on something I was collabed in with this about how they tracked it at going 73,000 miles an hour.
Damn.
One of the objects, yeah.
Well, I've got to stop you there. Like, how did they track something going that quickly?
I would imagine from the radar, just like the distance, like, it blips here 1 second, then it blips all this way, and then some math that's way too difficult for somebody like me to do.
It's probably like on the outside edge of the radar, and then it's the other outside edge like a second later. Like, I don't even know. You may not even catch that thing on a radar, depending on like what your scale is that you're looking at.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, do we even have anything do we knowingly have anything advanced enough to even pick up speeds like that?
Not that I know of.
I mean, at this point, aren't we able to track like meteors and stuff? So assumably they probably use like lasers to track stuff like that rather than like an actual radar. Like they probably have to hit it and then like see what the distance reflecting back is, or like how long it takes to hit it, and then they can kind of get a judge of the speed. Like I don't even think that they use normal radar for that. They use like lasers to be able to tell distances like that and how fast something's moving. But it would only be like moving towards you that they'd be able to use like the meteor technology.
Well, it is the mid-90s, so they might have had something like that. It's a little closer to nowadays than the rest of these stories were.
Well, if we're hearing about it in the public nowadays, that means that they probably had it back in the 90s to what we're hearing in the capacity of like, what the public knows.
Well, and the military is involved with this. So people were kind of hesitant to share what they found and stuff until the U.S. government released reports of military pilots' encounters with these unidentified objects. One of the government officials recounted how the objects ascended to astonishing altitudes, reaching 60,000 feet, and were doing, the bizarre flight patterns. People really don't know what this was. There's obviously a lot more to this than what I read. This is just like entry level, like, hey, this is what happened. But yeah, it's just wild because people report seeing things, reporting it as planes, swamp gas.
Good old swamp gas.
So to me, this one sounds a whole lot like the whole Phoenix Lights thing. And I just Googled it to double check. So the Phoenix Lights was in 97, which of course, just a couple years after this, but it's like a very similar account. Like this one, I wasn't really that familiar with. It seems like the Phoenix Lights gets kind of all the notoriety, but yeah, it's basically like the exact same thing. It sounds like.
Yeah, and it is. And I forgot their names. There's a couple guys that are like, this specific event is their bread and butter, their specialty. And I just remember listening to them talk about it. I forgot what show they were on, but one of like the crazy things that happened where people were seeing the most stuff was actually my old hometown back in Michigan, Coloma. And I'm like, oh, this is wild. Cause I've seen stuff up in the sky there. And, it's wild, man. And this literally the flight path they took is the right angle of the Lake Michigan Triangle, just straight down to Indiana. So it's really, really wild. But,
just kind of a tangent, throwing something in there. But I mean, we've all talked to a lot of people on podcasts and at shows and stuff at this point. I think that's one of the things that's so cool is, like you just said, like this is a story that basically I'd never even heard of. And there's these two guys out there that, like you said, know everything there is to know about this. And this is like their jam. And I think that's so cool. Like just people knowing everything there is to know about just these random events that most people have never even heard of. So I don't know where I was going with that. Just something I think is cool. So.
Finding your niche, man.
Yeah, it really is wild. And there's so much more on this topic, because I know Bray Road isn't too far away from one of the Wisconsin point. I could be completely wrong, but if I'm going off my mental map, I don't think it's too far away.
No, it's not. And even on the other side, like you brought up for a second with the Manistee, we did a 3-part episode on it, but like the Michigan Dogman phenomenon happening too. It's like, everybody thinks of Dogman, they think of Land Between the Lakes, but like, honestly, I feel like the main origin of that stuff started in Michigan. It was the Manistee, and like Michigan doesn't get credit for being like the Dogman state.
Yeah. We need to do something. We got to bring that back. Make Michigan Dogman again.
We got to own our cryptids, man.
Yeah.
We got a green squirrel and we got a fucking dog, man.
Right. LBL's got some cool stories. Well, I wouldn't say cool, but they got some notable stories like that family and that girl that was sprawled out on the tree and stuff. But do they got Joe Barger? I don't think so.
Yeah, we got endless stories of truckers putting shots into these things' faces, man, and then like black trucks showing up and being like, "You damaged our property." Like, the hell?
There's so much stuff, man, that people don't realize because people don't think of Michigan. Nobody cares about Michigan. Nobody cares about the Midwest.
Dude, I think they cover that stuff up a lot, though, because we had somebody who was a previous guest on the show, and he doesn't tell the story on air, but he was supposed to be coming to Michigan in order to investigate the Manistee, and they had this specific location where somebody had a bunch of sightings, and they were going to bring him to this exact place, and he ended up getting, like, caught off by some, like, unmarked trucks, and they basically said, like, we know what you're trying to do in the area, and we don't advise that, you go in there and do what you're trying to do. And I've heard like endless stories of this stuff with like the Dogman. Like it seems like the Michigan stuff, like it's purposefully covered up. Like when we did our series, I'm sure I showed you the calls, Ryley. And Orin, you probably are familiar with the calls that I'm talking about. The OnStar attack call. And it was weird because it's like every time I'd find on the internet, it would get scrubbed and the website would disappear. And then right after the following year, they made some joke werewolf attack OnStar call. Like seems like a weird cover up to me.
So piggybacking off of that, I've just been seeing like for the past few weeks, there's like this animated kids movie coming out called Dogman. Yeah. And it looks like it's like based off of like a children's book or something. I don't know anything about it.
It is. It's the person that made the Captain Underpants books.
Okay, but my thoughts are, the whole conspiracy theory about, Disney made the Frozen movie. So people, when they Googled Walt Disney Frozen, they wouldn't find the conspiracy theory about actual Walt fucking Disney being frozen. Like as soon as I saw this, I told Jenny, I was like, man, they made this movie just so when people Google Dogman, this is what's going to come up. And it's kind of the same thing with like the OnStar calls like you were talking about.
Dude, honestly, I will vouch for that because it's already because of the books. Like my nieces and nephews read these books. Like they're popular within like elementary school circles of reading, like Captain Underpants and, Treehouse, Magical Treehouse and all that stuff used to be like when we were kids. It's already at a point. If you just look up Dogman and you don't look up like Cryptid Dogman or look up like Michigan Dogman, if you just look up Dogman, it ends up coming up these books. And it's the same phenomenon you see with other stuff like the band The Foo Fighters. What are the Foo Fighters? There are these weird fucking UFOs that people were seeing back in World War II. Like there's all of these different like internet cover-ups for things where when you try to search something, it's like a band or a movie or something that's also called that phenomenon, and then you can't find that phenomenon anymore. Like this is like a common thing.
And let me build upon what you just brought up, Orin, with Dogman. I think tomorrow a new movie comes out called Wolfman. So they're double they're double whammying it. So
that gives people the visual. The other one gives people the name. 2 birds, 1 stone, because that's the other thing. If people are seeing something weird, what do you do to make it so those people seem like they're crazy? You make a movie that has something in it. Some of those people start saying, oh, it looks like this thing from the movie. And then people start saying, oh, so you're seeing something fictional. Like that's a ploy to begin with. Like Harry and the Hendersons back in the 80s, that seemed to have been like a main spot when people were like really starting to like see Sasquatch and stuff like that. People are actually starting to report it. So what do? You fucking make a movie. And if you dig into the backing of like that movie, there's actually like government funding that went into making Harry and the Hendersons. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start looking into like Wolfman, all this stuff. It may be covered under 3 organizations, but you might find something that ties back to some little weird section of the government. And it's like, why are they involved with funding the making of this movie?
Well, and at the point that children's books is one thing, but at the point you're making an actual fucking movie, I mean, that's going to be the whole first page of Google. And how many people are going to go to page 10 or whatever to find whatever they're looking for?
And like I was saying with phenomenon with Harry and the Hendersons back in the 80s, what's happening now? The Dogman phenomenon is becoming the prominent cryptid phenomenon.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Like
that's something we've talked about on the show a lot, like how in the past few years that's just been everywhere.
So you got to throw something out. And like I've said on the show a few times, I think that there is this more natural, like spiritual variation of these things. But on the other side, I definitely think that there's like government projects on whether or not they're like taking ones that already exist and figuring out how to use them as weapons, or they're trying to create something that's Dogman-like. I definitely think that there's some government tie-ins here. And that's why the Manistee seems to be this like weird secret where everybody that has an encounter seems to have not Men in Black, but these like unmarked vehicles with like people that are very formal. Well, they'll start like pressuring them without like directly pressuring them. Like it's a common thing that happens.
Page 8. Sorry.
Do what?
Page 8 on Google is when you stop seeing the book.
Okay. So I was off by 2 pages. Excuse me.
All right, guys, we got to take another break. We'll be right back. And now we're getting back to the bizarre.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, that was all I was saying about it. I thought you were about to hop in with something else. So.
Well, I mean, I know we're getting close, but I just want to ride this Dogman thing for one. We're already talking about Michigan. I just want to ride it for another second.
Yeah, you got it, man.
So many people I know are seeing Dogman-like things now. My wife just had a Dogman sighting 3 weeks ago. I remember texting Shayn in the middle of the night, yo, my wife just saw a Dogman.
10 exclamation points right after that, too. And, I mean, let them know a little bit about your wife, too. She's not, like, into this stuff either. So she saw something, you showed her a picture, and she was like, yes, that's what I saw. It wasn't like she had this preconceived notion, because you kind of keep your thing to yourself. You're not sitting here, like, ranting about Dogman to your wife because, you know, she's just not in that mindset, you know?
Yeah, actually, what it was is, like, because she called me, and it was like, yo, I thought this was a deer on the road. I saw this. It was, like, hunched over, it looked at me, it had red eyes, but I could see through it and stuff. We'll have to, maybe next time I come on, I'll have her come down for a second and tell her encounter.
Heck yeah.
But because it's pretty quick. But she was like, yeah, this and that. And like, I wonder if this is what you talk about. She's like, can you pull a picture? So what I actually did was grab my Cryptids of the Corn Dogman shirt. you know which one I'm talking about. They got.
Yeah, for sure.
And she was like, that's exactly what I saw in that position. I was like, yeah, that's pretty terrifying. And she was like, yeah. I was like, well, that's what I'm going to Manistee to look for. And she's like, oh.
That's why when we go out there, we got to make sure we have our ex-military personnel. I got one on my side. You got a couple on your side. So we're going to be going out there with 3 people that straight up have like tactical experience. We got a sniper, and I don't know about what the other 2 were, but like we're coming prepared for this shit, man.
well, you know, we were talking with Shayn that one night we went squatching, and you know he's not ex-military, but he's one of them dudes that does the simulations.
Not me, Shayn, just to verify. This is a different Shayn.
As we called him Shayn too. But
I call him Church Shayn. That's what I have him as my phone. Shout out to him, by the way, because I'm sure he's probably listening.
Probably. Hi, Shayn. But yeah, he actually used to do training and stuff up there, so like he knows the land.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We got 4 then.
Yeah. So we'll be safe. Like we'll at least be with people that know the area. But man, like part of me really wants to run into one, but then the other part of me does not at all. You know.
I mean,
well, hey, if y'all end up getting ripped up and like your legs thrown into trees and shit, it was nice knowing you guys. It's been real. It's been fun.
You at least got to do one more episode to cover our experience, though. You can't just end. You gotta end the show with a finale. Be like, this is what I believe happened to them.
The Orin Felix Jokapalooza program hour.
You'd be like, I don't know how to do the editing and stuff, so I'm doing this live. Here you go, guys. This is the information.
Just be running around in the woods like I'm the fucking Blair Witch.
Where did they go? See, our problem is going to be we're going to feel all tough. We're going to have these military guys stand there. We're going to get bluff charged by one, and then we're going to realize real quick that the bullets go through this damn thing. And we're going to be like, all right, what do we do now?
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Well, if y'all survive, we'll have to have a follow-up episode. How about that?
Oh, for sure.
As a backup, I'm just gonna bring a container of salt. So all else fails, man. Like if the guns don't work, I'm making a salt ring. Everybody, we're gonna try to fit in it.
Got you a diabetic wolf or some shit?
Oh man.
So Riley, as we kind of start wrapping up a little bit, like I know there's no real answer to this question, but like what is your kind of broad thoughts on the whole like Michigan Triangle thing? Like, you know, with the Bermuda Triangle, people talk about like the electromagnetic stuff and like portals and stuff like that. Like what, you know, gun to your head, what's your favorite theory on what's going on up there?
I really think it's something spiritual. I really do. Just given the area and like I mentioned earlier, everything going around it. And I think it goes far, far, far back. I could get into all the pre-civilization, civilization stuff in the area. I could get biblical with it. Like, there's a lot I could get with it. And I think the easiest way just to wrap it up is I really think it is something spiritual. Yes, there is a physical aspect to it being weather because, as I mentioned earlier, the weather here is atrocious. Just trying to figure it out.
I have another possible tie into this. So for the old, long-time listeners, they probably remember me talking about this a while ago. But Orin, you remember my whole thing when I was covering Kentucky and doing all my Kentucky research and diving into these anomalies that I started finding this thing where there was a recurring aspect of volcanic activity happening in the area at one point and it creating this basically like magnetic material that's underneath. Michigan Triangle falls into this area where it wasn't anything recent, but in prehistoric times, there was actually a volcano that was in the UP and the magma flew down into Lake Michigan. And there's actually weird magnetic anomalies that happen there because of that. So my whole theory that I was covering a while ago saying that it seems to be something that happens in all of these areas of high strangeness is that there was this volcanic activity at one point that basically created this magnetic material. Like this falls into that theory too, because Lake Michigan Triangle was one of the first ones I was diving into with that, because I started looking at Bridgewater, Bermuda Triangle, Alaskan Triangle, Lake Michigan Triangle, and then it isn't necessarily called a triangle yet, but just like the weirdness that happens in Kentucky, like they're all based around, again, like volcanic activity at one point.
Well, and kind of piggybacking off of that, the funny thing about that to me is, you know, in every culture, you know, if you go back into their myths and legends, like mountains and mountaintops were places where people communed with the gods. So the fact that like all this kind of activity is related to volcanic activity, volcanoes are basically mountains, that's kind of funny to me too.
It's when you make the gods angry, they just throw all of their Pandora's box everywhere. I could have went dirty with that joke, but I was trying to keep it clean.
Yeah, I'm pretty disappointed. I mean, I was expecting that to go.
You piss off the gods, they're going to spew all over you.
It's going to be so hot and sticky.
Oh, man. All right. I know I said I was done, but...
Did spewing hot and sticky stuff bring something to your mind there, Ryan?
We all finished a little bit.
I got a little flashback to my time up in the UP. But if you're talking, because I would imagine if it's the volcanoes there, it's got to be near like the Porkies and stuff up there.
That's where it all started from. Yeah. So yeah, you're correct on that one.
I don't know if you've heard anything about coming out of the Porkies or anything like that, but
like the movie? Yeah, I know all about that.
Hey, peeking at girls in the shower is illegal now.
But there is.
He said it was girls.
Ooh. Bring a whole other idea into hanging out with the boys.
But anyway,
hanging out with the boys.
With the Porkies, Riley.
Well, there's a lot of paranormal stuff that goes on up there. In that area, lots of squatchies, a lot of dogmens, you know, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if we're going off magnetic energy and rocks and stuff like that, you know, that could be a hot spot for sure and explain all the stuff that's going on up there. I mean, I don't think I've had anybody on my show talk about it. I know I've talked to people that spent some time up there about it, but I don't think I've gotten them on the show yet to talk about it. But there's some serious squatchness up there and just paranormal stuff going on. UP's got its own.
I'm gonna stop you right there, Ryley. You just said something that you need to put on a T-shirt like tomorrow. Some serious squatchness. If I don't see a Midwest Mythos serious squatchness T-shirt, I'm gonna be fucking pissed, man.
All right, here we go. All right, so if anybody out there listening right now wants to be the first one to make some Midwest Mythos make some Midwest. Yeah, wants to make some Midwest Mythos merch.
It's like web equipment.
Get a hold of me. Come up with a design that says some serious squatchness, and we'll make it happen because I want to do merch at some point. And yeah,
I got a guy for you after the show. I'll tell you about it. I want to see you finish up, Ryley.
All right, let's do it. Orin, awesome idea, brother. Thank you. I can't guarantee
how much. You just got to throw me like a sticker or a T-shirt once you get them printed up.
One T-shirt.
You can have that one for free.
I'll send you a couple.
I still got to make his Big Bad Boo Daddy shirt too, so I own a shirt too.
Well, hey, go ahead and do that before y'all get fucking ripped apart by Dogmans, please.
I at least want a shirt out of the deal.
Up on that.
Hey, all you're going to see left is a shirt that says serious squash and it's just hanging from a tree.
I'm going to make sure that I wear the Big Bad Boo Daddy shirt. So the only thing you'll see is a ripped Big Bad Boo Daddy shirt coming from a tree. And it'll be almost like you were there in spirit.
Yeah. And then every anniversary of that day, I can just post a picture and be like, never forget.
Put it up like a flag. You just got to put a tattered shirt up in front of your house. Half mast on that day.
Oh, I'm half mast every day, brother.
Always stay half mast.
And on that note,
hold on tight, guys. This is our last ad break. But if you've got some free time, don't forget to check out the awesome friends of the show. I Know Squatch, Snarly Yow Natural Products, Crypto Teology, and Big Ape Threads.
And our other friends with affiliate links, Dimension Devices, Oregon-ite, and Sticker Mule, with additional discounts and credits available down in the show notes. And we are back, so let's hop right in.
Shayn, if anybody wants to get up with us for any reason whatsoever, and we're going to keep our boy Ryley around for the outro on this one, but tell them how they can do that.
So if you're trying to find us, and then of course we'll get into Midwest Mythos, you guys can either email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys can get a hold of us through social media. Facebook and Instagram are the ones that we are the most active on, or you guys can get a hold of us through the submission form, which is available on the Linktree, or you guys can call or text our hotline number, and that number is 313-364-1551. And as far as Midwest Mythos goes, I know I have some of the links down in the show description, and they always stay there because you're part of the Open Minds Media family. But if anybody want to come and find your show, they possibly wanted to share some stories with you from the area or anything like that to kind of continue on with your Lake Michigan Triangle research, why don't you let them know where they can find you, brother?
All right, so honestly, guys, the best place that you're going to be able to get a hold of me and find me is my Instagram page, Midwest Mythos. Shoot me a DM. I'll get back to you within 24 hours, probably within an hour or two, honestly. Yeah, I definitely would love more people come on, talk about their encounters, or if like you're a researcher or something like that, want to hop on the show, just let me know. Otherwise, you can find me on my Linktree, linktr.ee/Midwest Mythos Podcast. It's got all my links. Like Shayn said, you go to Open Minds Media one, you should be able to find some of the stuff there. Or you can email me at midwestmythospodcast@outlook.com. Feel free to message me. Even if you just want to talk, shoot me a message, say, hey, what's up, good looking, Well, if you're a dude, I'll get back.
What does your wife think about that?
Hey, that's why I said if you're a dude, get a hold of me.
What does she think about that?
That's a whole other bag of worms, man.
Hey, man.
Or closed closet.
Nah, man. No. But, man, she can look at my Instagram. I don't hide nothing. Hey, but let's keep it cryptid related. I mean, if you're a boo daddy and you slide in the DMs, you might get a little extra love. You might get a winky face emoji at the end.
Boo daddies never keep it strictly cryptid.
But yeah, no, honestly, guys, I'm a big community. I know you guys are here too, big community guys. I love meeting you guys. I love talking to y'all. It's my favorite part about this. I don't care that I don't hardly get any views, stuff like that. I like talking to people, hearing people's stories, like my intro says. So if you guys are curious about the intro too, why don't you just give the show a listen? It's the first 45 seconds. And after that, you ain't got to listen to it anymore.
But you totally should.
Yeah, but you totally should.
Thank you.
And every single thing that we mentioned, including Ryley's link to his link tree, is all available on our link tree. Because like I mentioned, he's part of the Open Minds Media family. And again, we're keeping him around for the intro because just like us, he keeps it bizarre. We all keep it bizarre around here. So again, at the end of the day, always, always remember to stay bizarre. Bizarre. Bizarre.
Bizarre.
I'm at full mast right now.